In a world plunged into darkness and chaos, monstrous creatures hunted the last remnants of humanity. The night air was thick with their roars and the acrid stench of burning cities. Amidst the ruins, Paul sprinted through the desolate streets, heart pounding as alarms blared around him. He glanced back at the shadows closing in, their monstrous shapes barely visible through the smoke. He knew he had to find shelter before they caught him. Stumbling upon an abandoned house, Paul froze at the sound of crying children inside. Little did he know, this chance encounter would change everything. The film story starts with a grim scenario where the world has been invaded by monstrous creatures. These terrifying monsters hunted humans, driving them to near extinction. The origins of these beasts were shrouded in mystery. Some speculated that the monsters were a divine punishment for humanity's sins, while others believed that a venomous insect's bite had caused an infection that turned humans into these creatures. These were mere tales, and the real reason remained unknown. The once vibrant cities now lay in ruins, with overgrown vegetation reclaiming the streets and buildings. The constant presence of danger had instilled a deep sense of fear and paranoia in the few remaining survivors. In this desolate world, a survivor named Paul emerges. Paul, a former mechanic, had managed to stay alive by relying on his resourcefulness and survival skills. While scavenging for supplies in a deserted town, an alarm suddenly blares, signaling danger. Paul dashes through the perilous streets, filled with the roars of monsters and the sound of bombings. The world is engulfed in chaos, with the sky blanketed by black smoke. Seeking refuge, Paul stumbles upon an empty house where two young children are crying. Compassionately, Paul adopts them and takes them under his wing. He names the children Joseph and Thomas, and together they form a makeshift family, bonded by their shared struggle for survival. Years pass, and the children grow up, helping Paul gather supplies during the day. However, they must always return home before nightfall, as the monsters rule the night. The once innocent children have become adept survivors, learning to navigate the dangerous landscape and avoid the monsters. One evening, Paul's son Joseph returns home and secures the house by locking all windows and doors. Paul waits outside for Thomas, his other son, who is late again. When Thomas finally arrives, he explains his tardiness, citing his love for working on the neighbors' farms. Paul sternly warns Thomas that he won't be allowed to leave the boundary if he's late again. Before dinner, the family checks all doors and windows to ensure they are locked. During the meal, Joseph teases Thomas about his fondness for the neighbor's daughter, Rose. Annoyed, Thomas lashes out, leading to a heated argument. Paul intervenes, reminding them that they are humans, not animals, and should not fight so viciously. The tension in the room dissipates as they focus on their meal, each lost in their thoughts about the uncertain future. Suddenly, Paul notices their dog behaving strangely, scratching at the ground and reacting to something at the door. Paul and Thomas investigate and discover that the monsters are attempting to break into their home. They struggle to barricade the door while Joseph observes the creature's knocking pattern, concluding that the monster was testing the door's strength. Despite their efforts, the danger looms close. The night is spent in a state of heightened alertness, with every creak and groan of the house putting them on edge. The following day, Paul discovers claw marks on the door, confirming the monster's attack. As the day progresses, Joseph decides to construct a vehicle, expressing his desire to escape the constant fear and run away from the monsters. Thomas, on the other hand, suggests seeking refuge at Rose's house, which has a farm and might be safer. However, Joseph doubts that Rose's family will help them. The brothers debate their options, knowing that their decisions could mean the difference between life and death. They take the ailing Paul to Rose's house, but her father refuses to provide shelter or supplies, stating they don't have enough for 3 additional people. He only offers to let Thomas stay because of his help on the farm. Angered, Joseph leaves with Paul, and Thomas stays behind with Rose's family. The separation is painful, but they each understand the necessity of survival. That night, Paul, Joseph, and Thomas prepare for another potential attack by fortifying their home with gas and petrol, positioning their old freezer in the center, and spreading flammable materials throughout the house. They brace themselves for the impending battle. As night falls, monsters infiltrate their home through various points. A fierce battle ensues, with Paul, Joseph, and Thomas fighting valiantly against the creatures. The night is filled with the sounds of gunfire, snarls, and screams, each moment a struggle to stay alive. In the midst of the chaos, Paul instructs them to execute their escape plan. They retreat into the freezer, which Paul sets up as a makeshift bomb shelter. Paul then ignites the house, causing a massive explosion that kills many monsters. The force of the blast sends the freezer tumbling, and eventually, it comes to a halt. Emerging from the freezer, They find the house in ruins and are attacked by a burning monster. They manage to escape by car, with Rose defending them against the pursuing monsters that have transformed into rolling tires. The chase is harrowing, with the monsters relentlessly pursuing them through the desolate landscape, the car swerving to avoid obstacles and the deadly projectiles. After a harrowing pursuit, they manage to outpace the monsters, finding a momentary respite. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, they see the stars shining above, a symbol of hope amidst the darkness. As dawn breaks, they return to the charred remains of their home. The battle has taken its toll, but they are alive. They mourn their losses, burying the dead, and gather what little they can salvage. The fight has left them scarred, but their resolve is unbroken. Paul looks at his sons and Rose, the bond between them stronger than ever. "We survived," he says, his voice filled with both exhaustion and determination, "and we will keep surviving." Together they set off on a new journey, driven by the hope of finding a place where they can finally be safe, where the nightmare of the monsters will be nothing but a distant memory. The road ahead is uncertain, but they face it with unyielding courage, ready to confront whatever challenges lie ahead. The story then flashes back to a night of horror at Rose's house. Rose's mother is captured and killed by a monster while trying to protect her family. Rose, hearing the commotion, discovers her parents' bodies and is confronted by a monster. Meanwhile, Thomas, who was tied up by Rose's servants, manages to free himself and is saved by Rose, who kills the monster attacking him. They escape to Thomas's house, where Joseph is preparing for battle. Joseph fills the holes in their home with furniture and other materials, creating barriers against the monsters. He lovingly bids farewell to his unconscious father before stepping out to fight. Thomas and Rose arrive to support him. Together, they devise a plan to use petrol and gas cylinders as explosives to fend off the monsters. Realizes that they have become more than just survivors. They have become a family forged in the crucible of adversity. They drive through the night, the stars providing a glimmer of hope in the dark sky. The film concludes with the three survivors driving under a starry sky, free from the monster's threat. In the end, Arcadian is a story of survival, resilience, and the enduring human spirit. It is a testament to the strength that can be found in unity and the hope that can be found even in the darkest of times.